is the Senate. Good now.
Yeah.
This is the Senate Ag Committee meeting. It's Friday, April 29th. We're going to be discussing how to deal with the 626 neonics bill in some form, whether or not we're going to amend the bill or write a letter to the Vermont Ag Innovation Board. So that's what our meeting is going to be on this morning. And we are waiting for copies that Senator Pearson has gone after to review. So I don't know if any of the, we have Senator Polina, who hasn't come yet. Kind of waiting on him as well. Plus, we were a little late in starting because our clock in this room doesn't move beyond 4 minutes to 9. So every time I looked up at the clock, it said 4 minutes to 9. And but anyway, if we'll get started as soon as Senator Pearson arrives with the draft copies. Brian, did you email Anthony?
No, I can, well, I hate to get out of my chair because then you don't have a quorum.
No.
I did see him earlier. He was aware of the meeting, I think.
Maybe.
Oh, Pearson's gonna be in trouble if you can't find him. 626. It's a tie 2-2 at best.
You have to swing going at the head of the table.
Well, if it's a 2-2 and Bobby goes,
There he goes.
Lima's gone. The swing can't, 2-2 kills it.
He must have been looking at the same clock, Mr. Chair. He thought he still had 3 minutes.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised, probably like that throughout the entire.
It's not even
year.
9 o'clock yet.
You're right.
What's so funny?
It's actually 9:10. As you know, that clock is not
Clock's dead.
moving.
I kept looking up there and these guys kept gabbing and I said, oh, that's strange.
I was stuck down in natural resources.
Oh,
That's a good place to be. 2 of them have got it.
Right.
I'd be right in there pawing around.
Yeah, I know.
You'll be home next.
I know. I really had doubts about going in there.
I'd double mask if I went in. Well, I usually do anyways, because I wouldn't want to catch what's in that room. That's pretty bad, 2 out of 5.
yeah.
And McCormick was doing remote, so be careful, I think.
McCormick?
Was being remote. He was not tested, but and I think McDonald's just went out to get tested.
Yeah, that,
I kind of hope I get it again, because that way you build up more immunity, don't you? Every time you get it, I don't know.
well, go ahead down and.
Yeah, no, I had a good time when I was in Florida. But I could still drink all I wanted. It was perfect. Nobody bugged me.
My apologies.
Okay, thank you.
Did you get?
I just got your copy, so
Well,
I'll put it on mine.
Okay, here, Terry can have mine. He's seen it.
No, you can get.
You would be surprised how hard that is.
It's
Um,
tough not having the lounging where go print stuff, isn't it?
It's, yeah, well, on emails, like,
I've had Linda print some stuff out for me, 'cause I'm like, I don't have a lounge to go do it in.
so should I walk through, are we live and everything? So thank you for entertaining me. This is what we talked about yesterday. I don't think you were here, Senator Karen, but it's a very stripped down version of 626. Takes out Carrie's positions. It shrinks the BMP to only neonic seeds. Then it pushes the rest of the treated seed world to the Ag Innovation Board. kind of like we've been talking about in a letter. And finally, it has whatever BMP draft before they submit rules comes here and to House Ag for a preview. And they cannot submit rules until they,
Can we do a check back like on the other one?
well, that is, this is,
Yeah, but actually, we'd have to pass it. not
No,
just-
you can't. I mean, this is much more,
I
that's,
think we sent too much to Elkhart. It's not just this bill.
I understand. So
Put my foot down.
so if the check back is you can repeal the law at that point. So
That's
we're,
always hard to do.
I understand that. This is much, I mean, I think there are constitutional issues coming with this whole APA process that we looked at in Clean Heat. This is, we have seen this before. It allows House and Senate Ag to see the preview of the rules, react if they want. It bars the agency from filing the rules without showing it to us. It's, I think it is what you have seen more typically in the sort of preview rule zone. And I'll just remind everybody that BMPs are kind of guidelines, not hard regs.
So what kind of regulations do you have in?
Well, it's, none of that has changed. It's the same idea that they would be looking at, in terms of ways to reduce pest, the whole best management practices are establishing a threshold, they're all on page 4. Threshold of levels of pest pressure, and we heard from Kerry yesterday, he's here now, so he can talk about that. They've been looking at this, and they need some time, which this gives them, to land at levels, including they will, look at the economic impact, how the expectation is, how folks will do surveys in fields. None of that has changed. That's the same as that came over from the house. So I don't know how much more whittled down you could get and do this. And this is my shot here.
So, on page 2, I see you've listed all those different chemicals that are taught.
Yeah,
And then under H, any other chemical designated by the secretary by rule.
yeah,
So
well,
doesn't
it's,
that make it pretty wide open?
well, it is, that, again, that's the house language, but this is the neonic definition. So Kerry could probably tell us about that, but the secretary already has these powers, right? Because they have broad power around pesticides, and herbicides, or economic poisons. So my hunch is that, as we know, neonics is sort of a class. It's not one thing. And so if a new something popped into that class, I don't know, maybe we could ask Kerry.
Yeah, we will.
The House language had demanded BMPs on every treated seed, right? On all conceivable, more broadly. And this was trying to meet you guys in the middle of just sending a letter on the whole shebang, or seeing if we could move forward on neonics, but recognize we're not ready on, and there's more work to be done on others. We've done a lot of work on neonics. I drove in with Sorokin. He was saying that you guys still working on that? Yes, he was into
Oh,
this
yeah.
issue when he was on the
Every
committee.
year.
What was that? 10 years ago? 8 years ago?
He hasn't been here that one.
So on page
My
3,
dad's been.
when we talk about treated our powers of the secretary, I couldn't be the way I'm reading this, but it says Secretary of Agriculture, upon recommendation of the Ag Innovation Board, may adopt by rule. That's not new language, I take it. I don't want us to be waiting around for the, I didn't think we were gonna wait around for the Ag Innovation Board make recommendations.
Right,
I
no,
thought we
that-
were telling the ag department to go ahead and do
It says
this.
shall.
Well, so on page 3, that's current law. They may do this. They may have done this for many years. They have not done this. Later on page 4, I think. Yeah, under subsection A, the section Secretary of Ag, after consulting with the Ag Innovation Board, shall adopt by rule BMP for the use in the state of neonic treated article seeds. So we're not changing their broad power to do this as they see fit. We are pushing them on treated articles.
See, I don't like appointed boards making major decisions and, you know, that should be our job as being elected by the people. And this is a backdoor. Doing it this way is sort of a backdoor way of, well, you know, we gave it to the experts to decide and we really didn't have a vote on it. Well, you know, I don't mind sitting there voting up or down and answering to my constituents directly on issues.
Well,
I mean, if this came back to us somehow, I'd feel
so let's look
a
at
lot better.
the check back. Michael did that. So page 6, on or before March 1st, 2024, Secretary of Ag shall submit to the Senate Committee on Ag and House Committee on Ag a copy of the proposed rules required to be adopted. Then it says if they don't do that, they may not file the rule at all. So, and otherwise, assuming they meet A, they would have the ability to move forward 3 or 4 months later and file the rule. So I don't know. I was thinking that was a time to react, inform. Obviously, that's in the middle of session, pre-crossover. It allows you to respond, to tweak, to trim, to repeal if you want. I mean, I don't think it's great practice. We don't do it elsewhere. We all the time, we empower all sorts of agencies to sort out the details when we give them sort of a broad direction. There's countless examples of that. Here we're allowing, after the concerns were expressed, a check back. You know, whoever comes in to present those, you know, take testimony, you get all sorts of time and room to influence the outcome. I mean, we could tweak that date. I was trying to make it realistic for both sides, but I thought 4 months was, you know, I want to give the agency time to get their stuff together, although we hear that they do have drafts. They're well on their way of doing this thing.
But you see down in B, you know how things run around here, like molasses in January. And I think I'm reading that Secretary of Agriculture shall not file the final proposed rules under 3 blah, 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 until at least 30 days from submission of the proposal to the General Assembly. So that means they come March 1st. That first week of March, we're usually, whoever's here is not here. So that means you only got 3 weeks left
Well-
to deal with that.
We have half a session, but I mean,
No, 3 weeks, because you only have
oh, I see, because they have 30 days.
30
Well,
days.
we could, I mean, that's interesting. This was the construct then I sort of just said, Michael, here's what we're trying to do. So I would be open to taking out that 30 days and just having them file, on July 1st, or, you could, if you, or there's a few ways to address that. I agree. That wasn't my intention, was to try to have them file it on April 1st. The House bill had the filing deadline of July 1st, so I was just keeping with that. We could say at least, let's see.
Well, they'd have, why,
Well,
Nice.
you don't want them to go ahead and do the rules if the legislature doesn't like it. In other words, if the legislature was gonna say no.
Right.
So you could just say that they can't, my glasses are fogging up, but you could say that it shall not file the final proposal until it's approved by the General Assembly.
Well, I don't think the approval is a pretty high bar, and it's something we don't do. We have our whole process for that. So I'm not keen on doing that. I'm one vote, but,
we can
so,
do a check back where we cut it loose, or this committee and the House committee cuts it loose. I think it would,
how do you want to do that? We just get rid of this 30 days and keep it as July 1. So then you have, or say 90 days, which is the same thing, actually. We get rid of, or maybe we could talk to Kerry if I was trying to balance session dates and not having him have to do it 6 months earlier. But I don't know, maybe that's, you could give the legislature more time if that's what you're interested in.
well, I mean, 3 weeks is not.
No,
But we can play with those dates, but what do the rest of you think? Brian?
Mr. Chair, thank you. So I remain opposed to a bill. I'd rather see us write a letter. I did put a few thoughts together in terms of a letter, which I'd be happy to read if you like.
Do you have copies for us?
I can make them by the end of the day for sure. I have this one, that's it. I was here late last night. That's how I found out Senator Gray was.
Yeah.
We were here till probably 8 o'clock or so.
You'll be running me copies.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Carrie, do you want to comment on what you read in this draft?
Sure. Do you want me to? No, I think, for the record, Carrie G, our agency of that. And I think for this particular issue, that check back is very important, because while we're talking about BMPs, when you put in a BMP into rule, it has the full force of law. And we are essentially dictating when somebody
So
can.
it's not a recommending, it's really.
Once we write a rule, it's got the force of law behind it. And having gone through this process at the agency, gone through the process with the Ag Innovation Board, established cutoffs, criteria for when you can and can't utilize this technology, has the sort of, we might impact somebody's crop production. We could adversely affect folks' crop
Thanks.
production. So having the check back come through the ag committees is I think, an important tool, because this is a very big step. It's a very big step. We've written the BMPs, but what we don't have are those economic threshold impacts of when you can and can't use the seed.
I mean, you're still studying that or what?
So in terms of methodology for trapping insects under the soil, one of the criteria that we would be establishing for the IP implementation of IPM is that economic threshold when you would use treated seeds and when you wouldn't. And whether that's, 5 grubs or 5 wireworms per acre or 25 is going to set a criteria for when you can and can't use seeds in rural, treated seeds in rural. And, we'll do our best, but there has to be a policy check back. So I'm a fan of having that come back before this committee and you hearing from the folks that it will impact, whether that is beekeepers or farmers. So this is a contentious issue. As you've seen, we haven't been able to sort it out for 10 years. There's very strong opinions on both sides. And having that circle back through the,
So absent this bill, you have the power to file those rules with no check. Other than alcohol.
correct.
Maybe I don't want.
Yeah, I think that's why if we send them a letter, I mean, they're ready to rock and roll, but if they would push it, if a letter would do it, let's run through Brian's letter.
But just let's get clear on this. So if folks want a check back, you need to have some kind of language that mandates a check back in law.
Like we did, yes,
With the clean heat.
yeah.
Yeah, which has constitutional issues back, but we have done that is, I've never seen that construct that you guys came up with in approach until yesterday. We do this all the time. Rules shall be previewed in front of the committee's jurisdiction before they're filed so that you can have the input. And, you have all manner of options. Anyway.
But with the letter, and if they get their stuff together and get it done, then Kerry can present his rules right to administrative rules. We don't have a check back.
That's right.
So you might eliminate, if we went that route, you might eliminate a bunch of time. The only thing I'd want to get back from the secretary or from the innovation board, I want to see what their report is to the secretary. I'd like to see if that's in here.
Well, this is a really rough draft. And again, it was late last night, but I tried to take what I thought at least were some of the thoughts of the committee and put them on paper. So we're asking the secretary to seek guidance from the innovation board. And we all talked about that off and on about the situation with regard to the treated seeds. And then I suggested they get input from obviously the beekeeping community as well as the dairy farmers, because they have obviously a vested economic interest in this. And we are asking them to use a scientific advisory panel or subcommittee. I think when Connie was in, she did say that there were 3 or 4 people on that board that might have had a little bit more expertise in this area than others. However they want to construct that is fine. And I suggest some of the things that they take into consideration. Kerry's talked about, and Senator Starr too, about the threshold levels, the economic impact. We've heard testimony from farmers that they get 10, 15% less yield if they don't use a treated seed. But there may be a way to reduce the amount of that pesticide on a particular seed that sort of allows the yield to remain good and doesn't affect, the animals and the insects and other things. So human toxicity, ways to reduce pest harborage and their impact on conservation, tillage, et cetera, et cetera. So I just said, we've taken a lot of testimony over, and that's not just this year. Senator Pearson can remember, and Senator Starr and others, Senator Polina were on committee even 3-4 years ago that we've heard testimony on this. I just feel again that the AIB is in a perfect position to do the work that we want to get done. And as long as they're asked to do it, and this directs the secretary to make sure that this happens, that's probably the best way to handle
Comments?
Well, I think it's just intriguing that we either can have a check back or a letter, which may or may not do it. So I'm not sure, I'm hearing sort of conflicting ideas of,
Why
wanna have-
wouldn't,
I would ask, the
Why
one change I'd
wouldn't-
make in the letter is that any proposal that they have come back to the legislature to be written into law. I don't think we should be doing anything without the
it.
legislature.
Yeah, I feel.
I've been complaining about elk equal watch debates when I ran for the
About the what?
house. I don't like Elkhart getting all the authority they have, especially because Elkhart is clearly not reflective of the whole legislature. It's mostly just Senate Natural Resources sitting on Elkhart.
it is kind of loaded. I mean, I think anybody who looks at that board would have to agree to that. And,
you should.
Yeah, I don't have any-
Pro tem.
uh,
You should run for pro tem
why?
because they appoint the committees.
Maybe I should be more particular about who I vote for
Yeah.
pro temp.
Great.
Yeah, because you got McDonald, Bray, Lyons, I mean, former chair of Natural Resources, you have 3 of them.
Well,
This is future Elkhart, right? So this is until 2024.
well, Carrie, Anthony, you haven't piped in at all.
Well, the letter says, I mean, my concern all along has been that if we actually end up with a product, we want this to happen, not just to be thought about.
Mhm.
And the letter says, this is not a criticism of the letter, but the letter says that we petition you to seek guidance from your Ag Innovation Board regarding the establishment of integrated pest management. et cetera.
Okay. So reword that for me.
Well, I would say that we petition you to establish BPA, BMPs.
Well, doesn't it kind of say that regarding the establishment of?
I don't know, it doesn't, because it's not regarding the establishment of, maybe I'm being nitpicky. But I want them to not just, I want it to say directly that they shall develop BMPs. Not just, regarding the establishment just seems like it's saying, go think about it,
Okay.
as opposed to go do it.
Why would we write a letter to an agency that says, please use the power you have in law? Like,
Because it seems, well, personally, seems to me that they haven't used their power to.
Right, that's why we have to legislate it.
I'm fine dropping it totally and just like, let's move on and come back to this next year. Letter or law. So the letter, I think, was the compromise for those of us who didn't like the bill.
Here,
I just, sorry, I wanted to add that previous authority that you gave us needed the pesticide advisory council approval. This came before the pesticide advisory council, and they did a comparison of human toxicity of the alternatives and decided that the agency should not develop BMPs for limiting the use of neonates. So this, I keep hearing that we didn't use that authority, and we did go for, we put that check valve in there in the last bill, that this had to be approved by the pesticide advisory council. And they chose an alternative route to not pursue limiting neonates because of the human toxicity.
excuse me, for that. Yes, Mr. Secretary.
Sorry, can I see this one senator for a second?
Sure, yeah.
Sorry about that.
You can take him for the whole morning if you want.
I'm a vote.
So the Ag
I move we
Innovation
drop
Board
this.
has already reviewed this and turned it down?
The pesticide advisory council.
Oh, yes, but not the innovation.
No, it's on their next agenda.
Uh, But do they have any, is there anything in their rules or regs that would not allow them to proceed? They could just say it's too thorny and we don't want to deal with it?
No, because your previous language in the previous pollinator protection bill said the agency needed the approval of EPAC to move forward. You've removed that language with the establishment of the Ag Innovation Board. So the agency can move forward without the approval of the board, but we're going to collaborate with them to establish these threshold levels.
It seems
You
that,
really don't need anything there.
right,
Correct.
because on the one hand,
Those two positions would have been helpful.
right.
Well, you got money, hire them.
I need approval to hire, I need a box, I need a number, and we'll go a different route to get those.
I mean,
We'll ask Adam Gresham to give us empty boxes,
Yeah.
position numbers.
I mean, there's a lot of unfilled positions, and if you have the money,
Yes, we do,
you can do it.
and that's from S-102 that you passed last year with the,
So,
It just
Yeah.
seems like if the Ag Innovation Board is gonna take it up at their next meeting, let's say, and then they'll meet over the course of time, and, you know, it's 6 months, whatever, year, whatever it might be, and they'll come up with some ideas around best management practices. But it seems like you could have done, if we could demand that you do it, you could do it quicker than that. You know, you could actually, I don't think they're gonna come back and tell you anything you don't already know. Like if we just said as an exercise, go write PMPs for neonics and come back next week with your, you could do it.
correct. Yes.
well, he could be back probably this afternoon.
Right, I was gonna say
until you
tomorrow,
all
but-
done.
Saturday.
The sticking point is, you know, I'd like to see what Heather Garvey comes up with. They're doing some of the research on planting non-treated seeds and in-field scouting. So I prefer to make an informed decision about numbers that impact crop yield. But we could pick an arbitrary number and then affect people's livelihood and see where we go up and down from there. There's two approaches.
I'm just saying one approach would be a lot
Yes.
quicker.
Yes, it very much would. I agree.
So we're just gonna tell Carrie to go write some BMPs and come back on Monday.
Well, he's probably got them in his coat pocket or all written. So Heather's already doing work on this, or?
Yes, if you remember Heather Garvey's testimony, she did purchase non-treated seeds. They were hard to get. She's going to do trials with them this season. She tried last year, but there was a substantial crop failure, and she doesn't know if it was because there was no neonic or there was no fungicide, because they were not treated at all. So this year she has fungicide treated seed, but there's no insecticide on them. Just to see what the issue is and what impacted the substantial crop loss.
What do you guys decide?
I'm still talking.
No, we just, and Anthony had a couple of questions about time table, time schedules. And you were here when Kerry said he doesn't really need anything to proceed other than
Right.
getting the innovation board to do their thing while they're waiting for, we got another growing season before you can do much more testing.
So you guys get to have a check back if we pass the bill, and I get to have some certainty that they'll actually do it. And if, and both of those are a balancing act, and if we don't do anything, I don't have certainty that they'll do it, and you guys.
Would you do a stronger check back in
Don't
the
have-
mail? Like actually, not just to run by, but like. Present as a bill.
I get uncomfortable with this new, I've seen this kind of check back a lot.
Right, but the problem is that Senate Natural Resources has abused the LCAR process to get shit in that we've never voted for, excuse my language, and so I think this check back stuff is gonna become the norm for the next decade.
So I think the way that you do it is important, and for that reason. And I mean, what we're arguing about is whether or not there's a check back with an affirmative step or a check back with, a default yes or a default no, right? And since we've been arguing for this for a long time, I would have a default yes. In other words, you don't have to act, but you have.
I think we should have to pass a new bill and have the governor sign it
See,
if we do anything.
I think, out of fairness to everybody involved, I don't think there's any of us that think what's happening to our pollinators is good. It's certainly bad, and we all pretty much agree on that. But we don't want to we know that industry's hurting because of the loss of their bees. We don't want to take another ag industry and have them hurting because we're trying to protect the bees from something we don't know if it's really happening, and then still have, get that passed and in place, lose our crop yields, and still have the same number of bees dying. We really need to get our research done.
That's why this takes 2 years to do.
Well, if you could, I think we could get a vote out of here, pretty good vote, if we had a check back where either the committee, the two committees, or the legislature in general had to okay what we get back. I don't know if it's necessary for the whole legislature, but it's certainly, important that it come back so we can review the thing before it goes into law.
That's why I set it up that way.
Right?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Anthony and I have, I'd say, pretty good experience in government operations with sending letters to agencies to get a desired result. I think you'd agree. We often deal with the Secretary of State's office or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's why I favor this. And if we want to make another, tear the thing apart and rewrite it, but we could ask, to make sure that we get that report back and do it that way rather than put it, because this is going to go into session law probably, right?
Yeah.
We've got dates and all that kind of stuff in there, and
Yeah, I suppose.
so
I don't.
I think we want to get at the same point, Chris, I really do. Without using a hammer to kill something that, not kill something.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny because I find myself arguing now for some version of a check back because that's what you guys want,
Yeah,
but you're not getting that. There's no letter that gives the committee power of any sort other than a courtesy look. I mean, I suppose that's sort of the same, but you don't have benefit of, mandated dates or, really kind of holding them to their feet to the fire. So you'll be back here in 2 years having kind of the same discussion and wondering when beekeepers will wonder when we're gonna get serious about this. I fear.
Well, the other thing, by doing a bill this late in the session, unless you know where it's gonna end up, right?
Back in the house?
It'll end up in some wastebasket because the house probably won't get to take it up. I mean, you wanna think the long way here. Maybe.
There's still time for the house to react. They are not oblivious to how hard this has been over here. So they will have their choice to make.
So, you know, I think a letter we know will get there. And Gary's already said they're supposed to start work at this next meeting. And you don't want to fool the check back anymore, that it would come back so we could stop it if it's not good.
To affirm it or to stop it requires a bill. So I don't know either way. Under my construct or what you're talking about requires, you're saying you'd have to pass a bill to say, yes, go forward with your rules. I'm saying you have to pass a bill that said, no, don't, you're not allowed to have these rules. I'm not sure there's a huge difference there.
Well, I don't know if it'd be easier for the committee to agree to a check back, depending on how it's written.
I think everybody would like to see a check back. I think everybody would feel better if there was a check back.
But a check back that we could reject the
Right,
proceeding.
right.
So what about you guys?
I think the letter time wise makes the most sense, but I would, if the bill were to move, I'd want to check back and not check back, or it'd be difficult for us to get something through the legislature to disapprove. I think it needs us to say, yes, we agree with this, and pass legislation and get a governor's signature to agree with it going forward.
All right. So
Brian, do you want to comment?
Well, I think I made my position pretty clear. I still favor the letter, but,
I mean, the check back's gonna be my new thing on a lot of things going forward. I think it makes so much sense to not override the administration and not override our authority. How many times do we go home and say, we vote for the bill, and that's not how that was supposed to be implemented?
sure, I mean, it happens on all sides.
Yeah.
So absent bill, you don't have a check back. That's real simple. You want, period. You have a courtesy look, maybe, they decide, they have Elcar. So,
Karen?
As I said, this is a big step and a big step for agriculture, and we would definitely want both committees, House and Senate X, nod before we proceed either way. But, with the target at 2024, it probably isn't me sitting in that seat, it's somebody else.
well, we might not be sitting here either.
Yeah, you're more apt to be still in your chair than we are, probably. You don't have to get elected every 2 years.
30 years in August, let's just say.
Really?
Well, you gotta grow some to catch me. But, I don't mean to feel like you're big enough as it is. You gotta sneak in a few more years.
Yes, I get you.
Well,
9:52, so we're on the floor. 8 minutes.
So can you get that tightened up a little bit there, your check mat? Or do you?
I mean, no, I'm not interested in offering more of a check back. So if you guys want to do that, I'll entertain it.
Well,
But what's wrong with the check back as it's in the bill now?
Nothing.
Right, no,
I
I'm
think
not-
it's a
I'm not
decent
asking-
compromise.
Not necessarily asking you, I was asking the other folks.
The way the way I read that check back is, it's a courtesy view of the rules, and there's not approval necessary.
Right.
You'd have to affirmatively undo something.
Correct.
Will not follow the final proposal until least 30 days from now.
Yeah, I mean, I can change around the 30 days and stuff, but I'm uncomfortable requiring a second affirmative step. I think that the default should be, it goes forward unless people change their mind.
well, yeah, but we're telling the agency to develop the BMPs from direction from the appointed innovation board, right?
Yeah, in consultation, yeah.
The only thing we'll get a report back from the innovation board. I would hope that's in here. But then we as elected people don't sign off on whether or not we're happy with the rules that is put together by another group of unelected people. And we get to review it, but we have the only authority we have then is to get in one heck of a dogfight trying to stop it if the majority of a committee doesn't like it. And
Right, so, but this is against the backdrop of an agency that has this power right today through the standard process. So to me, it's very simple. I'm interested in pushing them forward on the date certain because they have not yet done it. To a point, to accomplish that goal, I will be open to some kind of check back. You guys want a hard check back? I don't want that. So then we don't need a bill. And then they may or may not do it and you'll get no check back. So this is why we're trying to compromise. And
What's your opposition to a hard check?
a hard check back is, I have a lot of opposition to it because you have the power. This is going to be hard no matter what. This is hard politics. That's why we're having a hard time. The process we have for decades is the legislature creates an outline, sends it to some entity within state government. And this new trend of trying to upset that and rehash it, will have us.
Progressive, isn't it?
It is not progressive. It is ridiculous. And I've gotten burned by rules just like everybody, all the time, from the PUC directly. But come on, us debating the millimeters of pesticide, it's ridiculous. This is why we have professionals who run the state and the agencies. And my objection is we will always have the power. We can remove the power of the agency to file rules on this matter. We can block them from filing rules. We have all sorts of power while we're in session, which is, I think, enough for the check back. But that's okay. I've become peaceful that maybe Carrie and the gang will do it. And I would rather do that than have a hard stop check back.
And to me, it just seems like since they have the power to do it, I mean, a bill just telling them that they should get in gear and actually make it happen is pretty non-controversial. I mean, it should be, I mean,
Well, we've got to get upstairs, but why don't you get those dates fixed?
Okay, you want me to just fix 30 days, basically?
Well, yeah.
Why don't I make that 90 days and take out July 1? Does that work? Which would be the same, okay? And I'm sorry to torture you. I'm tortured too, just so you know. I was like, it's not,
You don't look like you're being tortured.
oh yeah, I feel like I'm on the rack.
No.